uh, friends growing up, Eugene LaPlante.
All right.
The back of his yard touched the side of ours by the garden area. He had two sisters that lived upstairs. I think one was her name was Virginia. I don't remember what the other one was no more.
Okay.
And his dad's name was Reuben, and he worked about 2 or 3 blocks east of the house at a paper converting outfit there. His mother, do we have to bring her up?
No, you already talked about his mother.
Yeah,
So
she was a dandy.
yeah.
You couldn't touch her yard. She raised hell.
Mm-hmm.
But when she went to church on Sunday on Wisconsin Avenue there, I can't think of the name of it right now. When she went there, it was a Catholic church. She cut through our yard. It made a difference of who was doing it, in other words.
Yeah.
Let's see. We used to play, there was a kind of an open area with trees and that in front of their house. And we would play with baseball, softball is actually, we play with in the street there. There was about 4 of us. It was kind of a game that was, I don't know, but that was what we did. It was Eugene LaPlante, Eugene Stecker, myself, and I don't remember any more than that. But anyway, we would be playing out there with the ball and stuff like that. And if Eugene got called in the house, we knew we had might as well take off because a cop was coming soon.
Oh, jeez. Are you kidding? Oh.
Sure enough, old Frank Blick and I forget what the other ones are. We got to know them pretty good. I mean, they were friendlier than hell, They'd come and goof around with us, a little bit, And let's see. We'd play in the street. There wasn't really a hell of a lot to do. There was, let's see, that would be Eugene LaPlante. Eugene Stecker was pretty much the same thing, only he lived about 2 blocks, or 2 houses further to the east from where we lived. His folks were great. His dad drove truck for Standard Oil, which was in the next block going east. And the rest of his family, there was 2 of them that I remember that were older than him. He must have been come later, But his brother was, during World War II, he was a lawyer called into service, and in the service he was a pilot for the gliders.
What's that?
They had, they would taken. I think there was 4 or 6 in a glider, probably 4. And they would take it up with another airplane. and then they release it, and they would glide in and stuff where they get behind the lines with no sound coming or stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
That's the way that worked. So that took care of him. There was Don Druitt. He lived about a block away from me. The back of his yard touched Zion Lutheran schoolyard, which was, no big deal, but it was there.
Yeah.
And he was into airplanes as a kid, and had model airplanes and all that kind of crap like that. And when he got older, how can I say this? His dad had a business that was called Water Right.
Oh.
And so he had a business that was called Oil Right. It was, if you remember seeing any black, or not black, but brass outfits that were round like that on near a machine like that with oil in it, and it would leak down. That was what he had there.
Oh.
Apparently very successful, because the last I heard of him, he had a gullwing cub, a Piper cub, and he just donated it to the aircraft down by Oshkosh.
PAA.
So he must have been doing good too,
Yeah.
I got Don Sigler here. That was a cousin of Bet's.
What did you do with him?
When we chased around a lot, hit the bars and the dance halls and stuff like that. And then I got married and he got married, and that was kind of the end of it right there. It went separate ways.
Oh.
There was one other one. I cannot remember his first name. It was either Vernon or Vernon or Eugene Lemke. We went to school together at St. Paul, so we'd kind of walk together down to school and stuff like that. It was a good friend, even though he was farther up the financial scale than I was. It was like we were buddy. It didn't make any difference. He died young.
Oh, yeah.
He, of all things, now this is from memory.
Yeah.
He left at St. Paul. There was an exit from the parking lot right behind the church that went down to the road, and then it went either way on whatever
Franklin?
street that is. I can't remember. Anyway,
Franklin.
his sister wanted him to take something to a dry cleaner. So he was going to do this, I think it was during the noon hour. It's a long time ago now. But he pulled out into this road between the church and that, like that, and a car came along, hit him, and killed him.
Oh, no.
And
What
so
grade?
that was,
What grade? How old was he?
huh?
How old was he?
He would have been about my same age.
Were you in grade school?
Huh?
Grade school?
Yeah, right.
And he was
that
driving?
it was St. Paul's Lutheran School is
Sure.
what it was.
But he was driving in grade school?
It was grade school, yeah. That was where we got confirmed in that.
Yeah.
You know.
But I'm surprised he was driving at grade school.
Huh?
I'm
Sorry about
That's
this.
okay.
Driving
You said he pulled out.
while still in grade school. Driving.
Just a minute.
Yeah, you know. Here's the
Was
here's
he on
the,
a
here's the
bike?
back of the church.
Yeah.
The school is over here. There was a ramp, or what do you want to call it,
Yeah.
where you could get into the. See what it was. The schoolyard was all parking lot when things were going on at church or something
Sure.
like that.
Sure.
Yeah,
Oh, he was on a bike.
yeah. He
Oh,
had
okay.
this what he's doing for his sister, and he went down the ramp like that and pulled out into the road and bang. He was killed right
Oh,
there.
that's awful.
I cannot remember if his name was Vernon or Eugene. I think it was Eugene.
A lot of Eugenes.
I know of Vernon too, so it might be confusing me. Oh, yeah. Anyway, and then there was Burton Tussler. That house they lived in, there was people go in and out. So that house was being rented out. Mm-hmm. Well, it was empty, and Tusslers moved in. There was Sherry, Don, I think it was Don, or Ron, Lottie, and Burton. They must have lived there until they got established in Appleton. I don't know where they came from, but they had took over or started, I don't even know that, the Pontiac dealership in Appleton on Wisconsin Avenue.
Uh-huh.
That's her. And I think they must have lived there until they found a house to buy, and that was them, and they were gone, you know.
Yeah.
Let's see. If I run into him, it's just like as if it was yesterday, you know. That's kind of really. Let's see.
Can you see?
when I told you about when we played baseball in the street, if the cops, if she would, Eugene was called in, and the cops were coming shortly. And then the cops would come and sit there and talk to us kids. They knew what was going on
Yeah.
too,
Yeah. Can't.
and as far as Don Ziegler, it was where you see one, you see the other. When we were chasing around,
Yeah.
Huh?
You guys, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Sure.
He was him and Betts were cousins.
Uh-huh.
There was Jerry Thirk, but he lived a block away, and we didn't see him too often. Then there was one we went opposite corners of the lot across the street. I can't remember his name now. We used to go over there quite a bit. There was nothing east of us, nothing south. It was all older people as you went towards the railroad tracks. Going west, we kind of covered that. Oh, the Smiths, but they were there only a short, well, I don't know, maybe a long, but they weren't friends of ours for very long. Then they moved away.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Across the street was Breakers. Those kids were all older. The only one that was our age was Adris. That was her sister. That's the one that took the money out of church.
Ooh, I didn't know about that.
I didn't tell you that?
No.
Her ma gave her a quarter to put in the church. Well, I'll go step me back.
Okay.
She, somehow or the other, she took my sister and I to Zion Lutheran Church to go to church. Her mother gave her a quarter to put in the collection. She put the quarter in and took a dime out because it was 9 cents to get in a movie. It's that kind of crap you remember,
That is funny. Oh my goodness.
I can still see her.
Somewhere in here I have questions that I'm supposed to ask you, and I can't find it in this. I'm in the Google Drive.
And north of us, everybody was older. John Clark lived on the corner, and he's the one that got me into pigeons, because he had them. He was racing them and like that. And I basically what I did when they'd get too old to race, I would get them. You know.
Oh.
We had some of the stupidest things we did as for excitement, if you want to call it, or for something to do. We would walk down Winnebago Street to the east, get behind Tussler, tissue, some paper outfit like that, and then there was it was called Fox's Woods. At least that's what we named it, and we'd go in there, and in the winter time we'd take our skis and go in there and ski from the backyards of the houses down through the ditch and climb back up.
That's something crazy.
But there really wasn't all that much for us to do at that time. You know, there was no playgrounds and stuff like that. There was
Parks?
a school, and sometimes the park had an area. Like City Park didn't have anything, but if you went to Herb Park, there was baseball, and you know it was a lot much larger. You know. Let's see. Oh, did I ever tell you about playing kick the can?
I don't think so.
Well, on the corner by us here, Winnebago Street and Durkee Street, they at that time they had just a big light bulb that hung in the middle of the intersection. That's all the light you had.
Yeah.
And we lived the second house to the north, and it was kids that lived around that, is what it amounted to. And what was I going to tell you?
Kick the can.
Oh, the parents would sit on the porches and watch the older kids play kick the can. And what they did was there was a can would be put in the middle, no big deal. They would put it in the middle of the intersection, and one team would try to keep the other one from kicking the can. I mean, things were, you know, this is right after the war, no, not the war, right after, well, anyway, the little kids, they was let us play after they got done, you know.
Yeah.
We'd go out and make fools of ourselves is what it amounted to. And little by little, they got called into service.
Oh,
So then we were kicked the can, you know, like that. Oh man, it. Let's see. Then I got into model airplanes, building planes, you know, from sticks. And they were, some were, the older guys would make them and they looked great. Us kids put them together and they look like shit, you know. And I remember one time, Bud and I, in the back of the house, there was a stairway that went up to the second house. Up to the people that lived upstairs.
yeah.
Took an airplane up there. We lit it on fire and threw it.
Well, that's safe.
Not even, never even gave it a thought what might happen, you know. Just, it was something to do, we did it. High school, see, I was going, I went to Appleton, well, what was it? Appleton High School is what Appleton West now.
Yeah.
And we'd ride our bikes up there. And there was cripes there. I'm surprised there was never a bike stolen out of there, but there was, the school went around this area and the bikes were right there. And there was bikes everywhere, you know. Nobody had cars, you know, during the war and stuff like that. But anyway, let's see. I remember we used to go ride. I remember, I think I told you about Betty Grieper, Betty Salm, and Gladys Allenbrook. I told you about that, didn't I? It was where we missed the road and went.
Yeah.
Yeah, we must have made at least 10, 12 miles that day.
That's crazy. Anything else?
But from high school, then we moved from Appleton to the country there, and I had to transfer from Appleton to Freedom.
Yeah.
And that was, at Appleton, you basically didn't know anybody. And in Freedom, you knew everybody, you know. It was freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior, you know, all in the same one school. And there was only 98 kids in the school.
Oh, wow.
It was, from a kid's point of view, was a lot better than going to Appleton.
Oh, yeah?
I mean,
How so?
you could, in Appleton, you had friends, but then they weren't really friends. They were acquaintances, is what it amounted to.
Yeah.
In freedom, they were friends, and we lived it was 4 miles from the house to the school, and there was Walcott. And then we got the bus, and then I forget why, but all of a sudden my dad bought me a Model A for going back and forth to school. I know I played baseball, and that was always after school. That was a good time in my life, playing baseball. The problem at Freedom, is they congregated in one place, but when it was out of school, it was,
Yeah.
there was nobody close by. They were all 5-6 miles away from you,
Yeah. How many years were you at Appleton High School and how many at Freedom?
I spent freshman, sophomore, junior, and part of my senior year at Appleton.
Oh, I didn't know you.
And the rest of it was at Freedom. I'm trying to think of when. It had to be in the winter time or late fall that we went to Freedom, because it was in the spring we practiced baseball in the gym, and then we eventually went outside. So but that was a lot more friendly. I mean, everybody knew everybody. There was 98 kids in the whole school, and that was freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior. Oh, another thing I forgot, at Apple Creek, there was a tavern across the street from the tavern, and there was
Stammers?
a garage across the street, I should say. And at one time there was a dance hall there, and they used to come out there and with skates, roller skates, and then we roller skated in the dance hall with clamp on roller skates. If I remember, we paid a quarter for it or something like that. I don't remember them details.
Were there any teachers that you had that you liked or disliked?
Teachers I disliked. At Freedom, everybody was neat. I mean, you had four kids, freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior, 98 kids. in the whole school. You know, there's not many in your class. I think there was 13 in my class. In grade school, there was Mrs. Schmidt. She was, from a student point of view, she was the best teacher you could have because you learned stuff. But from a different point of view,
She crabby?
Schultz, in 8th grade, he was the principal. And in the spring till school was out, you didn't see him. He would be in the office listening to Cub games.
We had a few teachers like that too.
But Keith there, he had 7th grade. You learned, but you better watch yourself. You know, he put up with absolutely nothing.
Oh.
Stanley Harp found that out every day. It seemed like he'd take Stanley in the hall and beat the shit out of him. but Stanley never learned. Teachers I disliked. I can't think of anything I really disliked.
Yeah, well, that's good.
For that matter, I can't think of anything I thought was so great either. But that's so darn long ago.
I know. It's hard to remember. I'm not sure I would be able to answer some of these questions.
At Freedom High School, you stuck together. I mean, that's the only way I can put it. You know, I'm not saying the seniors against the juniors. I'm like that. I'm just saying that one group would get together, and that you kind of stuck together. And the next group would be over here, and that they stuck together. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and in high school that was cliques. They were called cliques. Okay. Well.
Did I told you about Tussler, right?
Yeah.
I tell you about Lemke.
Yeah. Okay, well, next week's question is, what kind of a teenager were you? Quiet, mischievous, wild, tame?
I would have to say I was quiet.
Well, you think about that this week.
Huh?
Just think about all that this week, and we'll talk about it next week.
Okay.
Let me see.
Is there anything I wrote in here that you want to know?